Hey there, it's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks. I nodded my acquiescence, embarrassed at my outburst. Sniffing, I took a sip of my coffee, while the girls did the same. As I glanced up, they were both looking at me solicitously. Are you okay? Anita asked. I nodded, yes, I managed to say, although my voice sounded hoarse and squeaky. Good. Well, now we really ought to start thinking about your formal costume, Nikki began. Anita nodded in agreement. Yes, she almost whispered. You're going to look just so good in something long and pretty. I stared back at her, and then sensing this was wrong, looked down at my coffee cup again. Don't you flutter your eyes at me, young lady, she said, with a giggle. I mean it. You'll look adorable in a long frock, won't he, Nikki? I'm certainly looking forward to finding out. Nikki smiled as she said this. Well, once we've all finished our coffee, Anita went on, we'll go around to your place to see what we can do. Yes. Nikki responded enthusiastically. Your place? I asked timidly. Yes. Didn't we tell you? Anita explained. I was sorting out your school uniform and Nikki was going to sort out your costume for the final. That's right, agreed Nikki. And I've found something that I think will be wonderful. I looked from one to the other. Well, I'd better get changed back before we do. What do you mean? Asked Anita. Well, I began. I can't really walk around to Nikki's house dressed like this, can I? There was a silence as my reply, and I found myself panicking. Surely they didn't really expect me to walk the streets dressed as I was? Well, I don't see why not, Anita responded. No, and it'll take for ages to get you dressed as a boy again, Nikki added. Anyway, it'll be the start of your practice. But someone might see me. I blurted out. Anita smiled at me. Yes, they might. Well, what are they going to think if they see me dressed like this? Anita looked at Nikki and giggled to herself. Probably what a pretty girl you are. Yeah, agreed Nikki. Don't worry, Steve, you don't look like a boy at all. No, echoed Anita, not at all. Fear and panic began to rise up in me. They were serious about me walking about outside dressed up as a girl. If anyone recognized me, my reputation would be ruined. You won't stand out at all, Steve, believe me, went on Anita, with a kindly voice. You look exactly like a girl, and having to go about outside will help you concentrate on acting like one. That's right, agreed Nikki. A thought began to formulate in my mind. I had to get out of this, it was too much. Well, I don't know about not standing out, I said. People are going to think it's funny if I'm strolling about in a school uniform on a Saturday morning, even if they do think I'm a girl. There was silence again, as they both looked at me. I felt a moment of triumph at having outwitted them for once. That's a fair point. Nikki conceded. Yes, agreed Anita. It will look a bit odd if he's wearing the school uniform, won't it? I nodded enthusiastically. Well, it doesn't matter. I can easily get changed back. It won't take long. They both frowned at me for this comment. Well, you still need lots of practice wearing a skirt, Nikki asserted. It's a shame if you have to put trousers back on just because it's a Saturday. Yes, agreed Anita. She paused for a long time and then continued. Well, actually, it's only the skirt that really looks like school uniform. He'd be okay with the top and the boots and stuff. Yes, agreed Nikki. If it wasn't for the skirt, people would just think he was dressed normally. For a girl anyway, added Anita, giggling. There was an awkward silence again, and my mind frantically raced to try and make the most of my temporary advantage. Before I could formulate anything to say, however, Anita's face suddenly lit up. "I know," she exclaimed. "All we have to do is find him another skirt." "Oh yes," agreed Nikki. "And if it's about the same length, it'll be just as good for practice." "Yes," agreed Anita. "I think I've got one that would do the job. Let me go and find it." With this, she leapt off her stool and rushed up the corridor to the stairs. I was entirely crestfallen. I had really believed that I had got out of having to walk to Nikki's house dressed as a girl, but with one sudden thought, Anita had dashed that hope. "That was good thinking to realize that you'd stand out a bit in school uniform, Sarah," Nikki said, bringing me back to my senses. "Well done. I'm glad you're taking this so seriously." She beamed at me, and I stared back. "Seriously?" I mumbled. "Of course I'm taking it seriously. I'm going to have to walk around to your place dressed as a girl without anyone realizing it's me." She nodded enthusiastically. "I know. It's good, isn't it?" I heard Anita's footsteps coming back down the stairs. As she turned the corner, I could see she had found what she was looking for. "This should do the job," she exclaimed, holding up a denim mini skirt for our inspection. "Oh yes, that'll be fine," agreed Nikki. "It's about the same length as that one," Anita went on. "So it'll be almost as good practice for him." "Yes," agreed Nikki. "All right then, Steve," began Anita. "You mean Sarah," corrected Nikki. "We're going outside soon, so we'll have to start using his real name." "Oh yes. Sorry. Well, Sarah, let's get this on you, and then we can go." She held the skirt out in front of me. I stalled for a moment, and then, rather clumsily, got off the stool. Anita put the denim skirt on the kitchen side, and unfastened the back of my school skirt. "Right, step out of it. It'll be a bit awkward in your boots, but you should be able to manage." I shuffled the skirt down my legs, and then the boots. All I could see was the silky smoothness of Anita's slip that I was wearing. I had sort of forgotten about it with everything else, but taking the skirt off had brought it back into view and into my consciousness. "Step out of it then." I carefully did as she asked, and bent down to pick it up. Nikki guffawed loudly behind me. "Knickers, Sarah. Be careful of showing your knickers." I stood up with a jolt, and nearly fell off my boots. Anita and Nikki giggled again. "You certainly do need this practice," Anita observed. She picked up the denim skirt from the kitchen side, and held it in front of me. "Step into this then, Sarah, that's the idea." Holding on to the kitchen side for balance, I lifted one foot up, and into the open neck of the skirt. "That's the idea. Good girl," Anita said encouragingly. "I'm not a girl," I insisted, which caused even more laughter. "Well, I'm not." "Shall we tell everyone we meet that while we're out then?" asked Nikki, between giggles. "That should be interesting, if anyone believes you." I blushed furiously. "Don't be so touchy, Sarah," Anita said. "You'll have to get used to us calling you a girl. Try not to react so much to it." "That's right," agreed Nikki, with a hint of triumph in her voice. "Now come on, let's have your other leg," Anita urged. Still holding on to the side, I did as she asked. As soon as I had stepped in, she pulled the skirt up my legs, and fastened it up at the front. At least it did up like a pair of jeans, I thought to myself by way of consolation. "That looks really good," commented Nikki. "I like that." "Let's just sort it out," said Anita. She pulled up the zip, and then lifted the hem to straighten out my slip. "There, that's better. Let's have a look at you." She stepped a couple of paces back to get a better view. Yes, that looks fine. Do you like it, Sarah? I looked down at myself, and although I had imagined that the front fastening fly might give me a more butch appearance, I was sorely disappointed. I looked just as girly as before, more so if anything, with what looked like acres of black silky thigh terminating in my tight-clad knees, just above my black boots. It's a bit short, I mumbled ineffectually. It's the same length as the other one, Anita pointed out. It's fine. Well, we're about done then, said Nikki. Shall we get a move on? Yes, agreed Anita, picking up her handbag and walking into the hallway. Nikki followed her through, and reluctantly, I did so too. We stopped by the door, where Nikki retrieved a jumper from the coat rack and a shoulder bag. What shall we do with all the stuff in the living room? She asked. Leave it, replied Anita. We can sort it out when we get back. Okay. Anita turned to look at me. Are you ready then, Sarah? She asked. I stared at the floor to try and hide my terror. I suppose so, I mumbled. Good. Oh, I've just thought, you'd best have this. She took another shoulder bag off the coat rack and handed it to me. No girl worth her salt would go out on a Saturday morning without a bag. Slip it over your shoulder, like Nikki. I glanced at Nikki, who had put her bag over one shoulder, and did the same. It felt strange to carry something in this way, and I could feel the weight of whatever was in it pulling into my skin. That's the idea, said Anita. Okay, here we go. She opened the door, and a flood of light entered the hallway. I could smell the outside, and see the pathway leading through Anita's front garden to the small wooden gate and the road. Luckily, there didn't seem to be anybody in sight. Anita stood aside while Nikki and I went out. Immediately I felt the cool air on my legs, even through the tights. I was a sensation I was not used to. Before I had time to react, Anita had shut the door behind us. This was it. I was outside, dressed as a girl. I closed my eyes in fear and shame. I was bound to be found out. Come on then, let's go. Anita said cheerily. We walked up the path, and I could hear the thwop of my skirt against my legs, restricting my stride. Every breath I took reminded me that I was wearing a bra, as its straps resisted any expansion of my chest. My boots clicked on the path as we walked. We all passed through the gate, which Anita shut behind us. Okay, she asked. I nodded mutely. She turned to the left and began to walk. Hang on, said Nikki. I told my mom I'd pick up a few things in the high street. Do you mind if we go that way? No, said Anita, and reversing her direction, walked back to us. Hang on. I blurted. The high street? Nikki paused and looked at me. Yes. But there'll be hundreds of people there. Ours was not a huge town, with a thriving mall, but the high street would be busy enough on a Saturday, and I was horrified at the thought of going anywhere near it dressed as I was. You'll be fine, assured Anita. Just smile. Yeah. Girls smile a lot, you know, said Nikki, admonishing me with her voice. I don't want to go to the high street, I exclaimed in panic. You'll be fine, Anita repeated. Just keep calm. Yeah, agreed Nikki. It'll be better with more people anyway. You'll not be noticed so much. That's right. Anita agreed. She took my arm in hers, and before I could protest further, we were walking up Anita's road on the way to the high street and the hundreds of people who would see me dressed as a girl. As we walked along the road, we all linked arms with me in the middle. I supposed this was some sort of protection in the minds of Anita and Nikki, but I still felt afraid and miserable. My boots hurt my feet, and the bag weighed heavily on my shoulder. I wondered what was in it. It felt like a brick or two. The denim skirt pulled at my thighs every time I took a stride, and the bunches Anita had tied my hair into kept tickling my face and neck. To add to my discomfort, I could feel the straps on my bra holding my chest in every time I breathed, and the electric rubbing of the tights against my legs. Please subscribe for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.